I'm sure you've heard the saying before: Greenland is icy and Iceland is green. However, the saying does not apply everywhere. Iceland is home to several enormous glaciers, the largest of which is the same size as Puerto Rico, and Greenland, for its part, is home to some surprisingly lush areas, most notably the Kingwa Valley, home to the island's only forest. All across the world exist geographic features that stand out in stark contrast from their surrounding areas. In this video, I'll be taking you through a few geographic features across the globe that seem out of place compared to their surroundings, as well as parts of countries that are very different from the perceptions people have about them. Hello and welcome to That Is Interesting. I'm your host Carter. Today, the geographic anomalies of our world. This video is part of a new series I'm making on out-of-place geography, and I've already made 2 videos focused on geographic anomalies in the US, so if you have more ideas of places both in the US and around the world to include, please leave a comment and let me know, because I certainly will be making more. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. If you're subscribed to my channel, I'm sure you, like me, love to learn new things. When I started this channel 4 years ago, making videos like these was a fun hobby that I had yet to really master. If you watch some of my old stuff, you can get a real sense for how the quality of these videos has improved as my channel has grown and I've devoted more time and energy to it. Your passions and interests have the same potential. If you're interested in learning a new talent or picking up a new hobby, like I was when I started making videos, Skillshare is the perfect place for you. Members have access to thousands of online ad-free courses on practically any subject imaginable. When thinking about how to expand my channel from here, one thing that comes to mind is starting a podcast. I've always been interested in having a podcast, but have never really known how to get going. I'm taking a course on Skillshare called Quick Start Guide to Podcasting for Entrepreneurs by Adrian Daniels, and that's helped me feel more confident about podcasting. With Skillshare, you can pick up new skills just like this. The first 1,000 people to use the link in my description box or my code THATISINTERESTING will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So please go sign up below. Supposedly Greenland's name, an unusual choice for a place almost entirely covered in one of the world's largest ice sheets, was chosen by Eric the Red, who founded a colony of Icelandic Vikings on the island. Perhaps due to the warmer climate of the time, or simply as a marketing ploy to bring more settlers there, he chose a name that brought to mind images of a lush and prosperous island. It's a stark contrast to the name Iceland, chosen either by a Viking explorer who arrived in an especially glaciated section of the island, or again as a marketing tactic, this time to discourage other settlers from moving there so the Vikings could keep it for themselves. However, not all of Greenland is completely covered in ice. The southern tip of the island is farther south than any part of Iceland, and in terms of latitude, sits less than 1 degree north from the northern tip of Scotland, both of which are only warmer because they get hit by hotter winds from the Gulf Stream. Much of Greenland's coastline, though at times challenging to live in, is habitable, and in places even is a home to soil and grasses, with small farms existing on part of the island's coast. The greenest part of Greenland, though, is the Kingwa Valley, a small valley off the Tassermiut Fjord, 25 miles north of the island's southern tip. While the ice sheet keeps much of Greenland frozen, the Kingwa Valley's relatively southern location, coupled with its proximity to the ocean, which has more mediating effect on the weather, makes it warmer than other parts of the island. In addition, southern Greenland is hemmed in by tall mountains, some of which are higher than the ice sheet itself, blocking the Kingwa Valley from freezing winds that blow in from the ice, and allowing a small forest to grow. In centuries past, more of the island was likely forested. Vikings settled in Greenland during a brief period of warmth, logging part of its forests and bringing animals to the island to graze in the grass. In addition, they would dig up chunks of soil to build turf homes, which kept them insulated in the cold weather. However, they eventually overused these natural resources. This, coupled with the island's period of relative warmth coming to an end as glaciers moved closer, killed off the Norse settlement of Greenland 500 years after its founding. However, in the Kingwa Valley, a forest still remains where they once lived, its greenery standing out starkly from the cold and barren landscape around it. Moving on to China, just outside the city of Zhangjiajie and the southeastern part of the country lies one of the strangest and most spectacular places on Earth, the Zhangjiajie National Forest Park. Said to have been the inspiration for the setting of Avatar, Zhangjiajie is a forested mountain range home to thousands of quartz and sandstone pillars that rise drastically out of the ground, many of which are topped with trees, resembling a stone forest or islands in the sky. It's the result of tectonic activity combined with erosion. The mountains sit on a fault line which lifted them up. They were made mostly of soft siltstone and hard sandstone, but located in a lush rainforest, rainfall and ice eroded away at the siltstone, leaving behind only the spectacular sandstone formations. Zhangjiajie became the country's first national park and is home to a massive outdoor elevator as well as a glass bridge over a canyon known as the Zhangjiajie Grand Canyon. A similar phenomenon exists in southern China's stone forest, or Shilin, located in the province of Yunnan. There, jagged yet smooth limestone formations jut out of the ground, creating a unique and stunning landscape. It was created in a very similar way to Zhangjiajie. Once located underwater, the area was covered in sandstone and limestone deposits. After being pushed to the surface, the sandstone weathered and eroded away, leaving behind an unbelievable stone forest. The next geographic anomaly I'll discuss is located in Egypt. The Sahara is a vast and often incredibly desolate desert. If you look at a satellite image of the Earth at night, hardly a speck of light penetrates this vast sea of sand. It makes sense that this is the case. The scorching hot weather and lack of water and accessibility, coupled with vast sand dunes that make it near impossible to put houses in many areas, mean that much of the Sahara is very sparsely populated. The one exception to this is the Nile River, which cuts through the desert in Egypt and Sudan, leaving behind a lush, fertile valley and delta where most Egyptians reside. It's often described as resembling a giant lotus, with the delta looking like a flower and the valley a stem. If we stick with the flower metaphor, a small leaf even seems to stem off of it. Connected to the Nile Valley by a thin strip of agricultural land, this leaf-shaped fertile agricultural basin stretches 45 miles or 72 kilometers into the Sahara, standing out sharply from the almost uninhabitable desert around it. This is the Fayoum Oasis, a center of population home to 3.8 million people, and anchored around the city of Fayoum, Egypt's 13th largest city, which was known by the Greeks as Crocodilopolis, which is probably one of the most amazing city names I've ever heard, named as the region was a center of worship of an ancient Egyptian crocodile god. It was the setting of much of Paulo Coelho's famous book, The Alchemist. It would be by far the largest oasis in the world, but it is technically not considered one. While oases exist because of springs emerging from the desert, the Fayoum was formed by overflow from the Nile. When the river would flood, it would pour into the lower lying basin, forming a lake called Lake Moeris, and pouring in fertile mud from the river. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs had the channel from the river to the lake widened, forming a canal now known as the Bar Yusuf, and pouring more water in. Eventually, the canal fell into disrepair and the lake shrunk, leaving behind a salty remnant called Karun Lake. All the mud brought in from the Nile filled the basin, leaving behind rich and fertile farmland that turned the Fayoum Oasis into the center of agriculture and population that it is today, creating a unique region that juts starkly into the Sahara around it. In the Mexican state of Sonora, crossing slightly into Arizona and only 13 miles from the northern end of the Gulf of California, a circular range of black mountains rises out of the red and golden sand dunes of the Gran Desierto de Altar. These are the Pinacate Peaks. If you look at them from above, you can see a stunning sight. More than 300 volcanic cones compressed in an area less than 30 miles wide. It's a land of lava flows, craters, and black sand that looks nothing like the rest of the landscape around it. Many of the craters in the Pinacate Peaks are called maars. They're formed when water under the ground meets magma, creating an explosion. It's an incredible volcanic field, filled with enormous craters, small cones, and Volcan Santa Clara, a large shield volcano with multiple peaks that dominates the Pinacate landscape. Moving on to the island of Bohol in the Philippines sits one of the most unique and stunning places in the world, the Chocolate Hills. They have the name because they resemble giant Hershey's Kisses sticking out over the forest. There are thousands of them, stretching across much of the central and southern parts of the island. It's hard to find anything like them on Earth. While hills typically are rolling and connected, part of a plateau for example, many of the Chocolate Hills stand on their own, with flat land sitting between each hill and the next. While rainforest surrounds the hills, each hill itself stands out even more due to its lack of tree cover. In fact, only grass grows on top of them, and their unusual, almost triangular shape makes them all the more unique. In the summer, the grass dies and the hills turn brown, giving them their chocolate color. The hills are made of limestone, which was brought up from the seafloor before breaking apart. Erosion from both wind and water shaped them down into the cone-shaped hills that exist there today. This type of landscape, known as karst, is the same phenomenon that's visible in the Schieland stone forest. Each hill juts up starkly from the flat farmland and rainforest around it, and that, coupled with their unique colors and vegetation as well as their strange, almost pointed shape, makes the Chocolate Hills a region unlike almost anywhere else on Earth. The final place I'll discuss in this video is located in Colombia. Most of the country is quite green and lush. The Amazon rainforest occupies the southernmost third of it, and jungles stretch across the country's coast all the way to its border with Panama and the nearly impenetrable Darien Gap. Grasslands and forested mountains take up most of the rest of the country, with one notable exception. The northern tip of Colombia is a large peninsula jutting out into the Caribbean, one it shares with Venezuela. Called La Guajira, most of the peninsula is a desert, and desert-like conditions extend along much of the coast of the Gulf of Venezuela to Venezuela's Paraguana Peninsula. La Guajira exists because of the dry trade winds that pass over it, which push clouds and potential precipitation out of the way. Its dry climate, home to sand dunes, cacti, and even a flamingo reserve, is unlike anywhere else on the continent north of the equator. The indigenous people who live there, the Wayuu, used the desert to their advantage and successfully resisted centuries of Spanish colonization. The peninsula didn't even become part of Colombia until the late 1800s. Today, the Wayuu are mostly self-sufficient and independent, and use of the Wayuu language, as well as traditions such as deep-sea pearl diving, are commonplace in the peninsula, whose desert environment keeps it and its people isolated and relatively untouched. There are plenty more examples of regions around the world that are geographically out of place from the areas around them. This is the third video I've done on this topic, and I will certainly continue with this as a series. I've already made 2 videos on geographic anomalies in the United States, and would like to make more on both the US and the world, so please leave comments below, suggesting any out-of-place geographic features or regions that you'd like to see in future videos. I want to give a big thank you to everyone who has already joined my Patreon. Through it, you can access different things such as behind-the-scenes videos, early access to maps I create, an exclusive Discord Q&A with me, ad-free content, and shoutouts in my videos, such as this. Please be sure to check out the TII store, where you'll be able to purchase all sorts of official That Is Interesting products and merchandise, including shirts, hoodies, embroidered beanies, masks, mugs, embroidered backpacks, laptop stickers and sleeves, and so on. I really appreciate the over 500 of you who have already joined my Discord server. If you haven't joined the Discord server yet, it's a great place to continue conversations about the topics discussed in these videos, interact with fellow viewers, and help provide information and suggestions for future videos. It's a great community, and we do fun stuff like geography game nights, live podcasts, and so on. I'll put links to both the Patreon and the Discord in the comments. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you learned something new. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover the countries, cities, people, and places of the world and beyond. These videos will leave you saying, that is interesting.